Well, welcome everyone. My name is Carla Van, and I'm the Literacy Action Network Administrative Coordinator. And on behalf of Literacy Action Network, I would like to welcome you to the webinar, Creative Ideas for Student Recruitment and Retention and Social Media Marketing. If you're having any tech issues, please chat to me in the chat box, and I will try my best to help you out. I have muted everybody that I can because we get a lot of feedback, like a tin can kind of feedback. So if you can mute yourself, that would be great. So this webinar is hosted by Literacy Action Network and is a project supported by the Supplemental Service Grant. And it's the first in a series of 4 webinars that we'll be holding this year. This webinar is going to be recorded and it will be hosted on the Literacy Action Network website, as well as the Minnesota ABE Administrator Group on Schoology. At the end of the webinar, I will have some more information about that and how to access that page. We'll ask that if you could please hold your questions until the end of the webinar, either jot them down on a piece of paper so that you can remember them, and we'll have some time at the end for our presenters to answer your questions. A big thank you to today's presenters, Kathy Grady, the Assistant ABE Supervisor at Hub Center, Christy Rooney, the ABE Coordinator at Austin Adult Learning in Austin, Sherry Bruins, ABE Site Manager at Hutchinson Adult Education in Hutchinson. So a big thank you to our presenters today. And so now I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for coming. I just put together what feels like a little bit of a random selection of recruitment and retention strategies that we've been doing at Hubs, but I'll share it with you, and if you have questions at the end, please chat or let me know. That's me, and that's from the conference this year. I tried to Photoshop it, but it didn't work, so anyway, there you go. So what I'm going to talk about today is, or for the next few minutes, is what we've done here at Hubs with class scheduling, class offerings, with distance learning, and with focusing on the St. Paul Public Schools strategic plan, which happens to include some things that I think are really relevant to recruitment and retention. So the first one is class scheduling. We used to have more classes on Friday and fewer classes on Saturday. In fact, we had no classes on Saturday for a long time, until last year when I started here. But because of the job market, people are working, and especially our employment-related classes, people who want to move up in their careers, or they tend to already be working. So we found that trying to have those classes during the week didn't work well. And one example is that we had a Marsden building maintenance class. Marsden is obviously, I think you all know, is a big employer in the cleaning retail and office buildings. And we tried to have that at the Marsden offices during the week, and it didn't work. We had very low attendance. So we moved it to Saturday morning, and we've got much, much, much better attendance. And so it's just one Saturday, so it's not maybe as intense as it would have been, but since then we've moved more employment-related classes to Saturday morning. Our Serve Safe class and our Parapro, actually no, the Parapro is not on Saturday. The Serve Safe class and Advanced Child Development are both on Saturday morning, and we've had pretty good luck with that. Let's see, so as I said, last year Friday classes were poorly attended, and now we've kind of switched that around a little bit so that we could have standalone classes, so students could take an extra class and get something that they maybe weren't able to get during the week, like CASAS prep, citizenship, advanced pronunciation. We're doing a driver's permit class, and those individual classes are pretty well attended. So we probably, because of the just the lower number of students in general, in our program over the past few years. I bet we took Friday and we just kind of split it between Friday and Saturday, but at least we're not missing out on all those people who could only come either Friday or Saturday. So, and people who want another day of class, but you know, will only go to a specialized class. So as you can see on the screen, our core classes are Monday through Thursday, 8:30 to 2:30, and then we have classes from 4 to 5. Those are generally specialty classes like distance or like digital literacy and pronunciation. And then we have classes 5 to 8. So also, as you can see on the screen, we have Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday classes in the evening. And so those are complementary. So students can take like a writing class 2 nights a week, and then the alternating 2 nights, like a Monday, Wednesday, would be just like ELL 6 or something. Last year we had a group of students who from Bethel in a marketing class who did a survey and a focus group of students for us here on site. And one of the things that bubbled up was that our students liked it that our classes were free and flexible. So they said, so the Bethel students advised us to use those words free and flexible as much as we can to kind of promote the program. And we also discovered that our students are on social media, and it's not just the old people who are on Facebook, old people like me. So that's good to know. And I was just at a high school last week, and I did a little informal survey of students and high school students, and most of them said that they were on Facebook. So I was happy to hear that. So we do have a Facebook presence also. Let's see. Okay, so last year we tried alternating our classes during the day as well as in the evening. And, you know, because so many people are working and busy with other things, we thought it might be good for them to have a 2-day option. And so we had like 2 days of math and 2 days of writing, but teachers really didn't like this system. It was, well, a big change for one thing, and, you know, change is hard. And then, you know, if a student couldn't come one day, then they're only getting 1 day of that teacher's class. So that was much less intensity, unfortunately. And it got a little confusing. So we stopped doing that this year, starting this fall, but we're still getting students who ask for that. So we might, you know, kind of dabble in it again in the future. So let's see. Another thing we did, as you all know, when people get out of their routines, it's a little harder for them. It's hard to get back into the routines. And so every time we have a break, we have a little bit of a, you know, a curve back up to the normal attendance levels. So also we had a nasty winter, and our schools were closed so much that like I was really like screaming whenever I found out that it was closed again for a snow day. And my kids were even tired of them. So some things we did to sort of make up for that was that we offered a few core classes over spring break, and we added 2 weeks to our summer session. That helped our hours, and it helped students who, you know, I mean, they missed 7 days for snow days, so it was pretty disruptive for learning. So I think it helped a little bit. We changed our class offerings a little bit. We used to have discrete writing and computer classes for EL learners. Now we have a class called Communication 1 and a class called Communication 2. And these classes address all of the skills, writing, speaking, and digital literacy skills. So it's a little bit more all-in-one kind of thing. And also we have fewer teachers this year. We had some retirements last year, and we haven't really, we haven't replaced many of those contracts because we just don't have the students right now. So, so it was good to be able to kind of combine some of those classes. We also started a class called GED Online, which is actually, we call it online, but it's really a hybrid program. in person and mostly online, actually. So students come in, they meet with a GED teacher, and she's kind of our she's a very, very good navigator. She's a very good counselor, and they meet with her the first time and find out what they need, and then she kind of funnels them to the math teacher if they need math, and the reading teacher if they need reading. And then they do most of their work online, but the teacher checks in with them, whether it's the math teacher or the social studies and science teacher. And so they can do that remotely, or the students can come in at certain office hours. And we've had a couple graduates, which is really nice. It's still a very small program, but we're trying to grow it. We also have a math lab for students who can't get into the level of math that they need, or maybe they missed their start date, because math well, all of our classes are somewhat managed enrollment, sort of a modified managed enrollment model. So students who are not at a lower level than what we have math classes for can go into the math lab and get sort of a one-room schoolhouse style class until they can get into a class that works for them for math. Another way we have an area actually where we've increased, it's the only area we've increased our hours in the past few years, is distance learning. We have a distance learning office where there are office hours and various people share the load of orienting and introducing students to distance learning. So students just kind of come when the office is open. But then we've also started doing push-in distance learning registration, mostly on read theory for some of our EL classes. So we'll take the computer lab into a class and just sign up the whole class for read theory. And that's been working pretty well. We also have a computer incentive program with an organization here in the Twin Cities, and I think it's actually out of state too, and it's in other states, called PCs for People. And they refurbish computers and then they sell them to us for $100 each, and then we give them out to students who meet certain distance learning goals. So last year it was either 75 hours of distance learning in a month or 200 hours for the year. This year, in order to encourage students to continue distance learning past just a month, to get that computer, we're making it 250 hours for the academic year. So we expect that we'll be giving out most of our computers in the spring. And that's something that we have to do our own fundraising for, kind of separate from the school district. So that makes it a little tough, but it's still been a big incentive. Okay, I'm almost done here. We have also, like I said before, we've been doing some work on strategic planning. The district, St. Paul district, is doing strategic planning, and we're doing our own strategic planning that kind of with appropriate themes that match the St. Paul schools, but also that work for us. And so there's a number of them, but the three that I think are most relevant for this topic are student advising, positive school culture, and family and community engagement. So we're trying to ramp up our student advising services. And I'm not on that one, so I'm not going to talk about that much, but just know we're working on that. The positive school culture and family and community engagement I am working on. And this next slide is just an example of something we did recently. And honestly, I was a little dubious. I didn't know that if people were really going to participate in putting a puzzle together. But it was so awesome to see. I walked in early in the morning and I saw those guys on the left working on the puzzle, and then Mike, our custodian, came and joined in and helped a little bit later. And by early afternoon, these ladies had finished up the llama puzzle. So it was we decided that positive school culture is community building, doing things that create a sense of belonging and teamwork and collaboration. So that's just a small example of something we've been doing. We've also been, it's not on this slide, but oh yeah, it is actually, celebrating successes. So I have a bulletin board up around the school. We have bulletin boards up around the school, and one thing we did last month was ask students what's one thing that you like about Hub Center, and we got a lot of good things. And then I posted a picture of that on our Facebook page. Also, we had a student who's been in the program a really long time and hadn't been making a whole lot of progress, but finally got her citizenship. And so we made a big fuss over that, and it was great. She was very happy, and it was fun to celebrate that. And it always makes people feel good to be highlighted. And then one last thing, and I think that's my last slide, is that this month we had a student meet and greet. We realized, I think it's probably pretty common that you lose a lot of students between 12 and 40 hours, and we want to keep students, obviously. And so we thought one way we could make new students feel welcome and make sure that their questions get answered and things is to have a little reception for them, real casual, like food from Aldi and some coffee and stuff. And we just opened a classroom and invited those students to come in right in between our two major morning sessions of classes. And so we had about 15 or 20 students show up to the first one, and we're going to continue doing it. It was really nice, and it's always nice for the administrators and the counselors and the support staff to get to know the students a little bit better beyond just the first intake time. So, okay, I think I went over what I said I was going to do. So I will finish up, and please do ask questions later if you have any. And thanks so much for listening. And I will turn it over to Christy.
All right, thank you, Kathy. We'll see if I can get this going. Find my page. Here we go. All right, I am excited to be here and part of this talk on retention. My name is Christy Rooney. I am the ABE coordinator for Austin Adult Learning in Austin, Minnesota. I'm also a mindset neuroscience educator and speaker. So usually when we talk about retention, one of the main topics is the physical barriers. So the transportation, the childcare, illness. I'm not going to be spending any time on that today because I feel like there's a lot of resources out there already. But when I first started as a navigator, the invisible barriers were the ones that I had the hardest time with. And so normally when I present, I have a lot of time and we really delve deep into the whys. I think that's important because it builds understanding and also builds compassion. Just for our time's sake today, I will be going over a little bit of that, but I will not be going over that too deep. So make sure if that's an interest to you that you contact me. We can do a session, or make sure you catch me at another session. The first invisible barrier that I found was this idea of lost motivation or lost hope. And that's when a student, we all have them, they start out excited. We're excited for them. And then as the days, the weeks, the months go, they disappear. It's really easy for us to say, oh, they just didn't want it enough, and to write it off as, yep, I should have known, I should have expected that, and we don't really think about it again. I want to go and then reflect that back to us when we have a goal. So I'll just use weight loss because that's pretty universal, but we want to lose weight, we find a diet we're excited about, we get going a day or a week, and then after about 7 days, if we're lucky, we've fallen off. And so somebody could say to us, well, you just didn't want it enough, which is maybe true to a certain extent, but there's a lot of other things happening deeper with that. And so when we're dealing with our students, to have a little compassion and know, like, there's a lot of things going on at play with this. One of them is identity, and I have that on the screen there. We respond to the world out of who we believe ourselves to be. Our beliefs tend to be contained in our subconscious brain, so that's the brain that we don't think about, created by experiences in our past with the highest emotional weight. And highest emotional weight, just to explain that part, we are inundated with a million pieces of information a second, and we can't possibly process all of that at the same time. And so what happens is we kind of have a filter. And one of the ways, if something comes through the filter, is because our body has a physical feeling about it. And so fear, has a fear to it. It has a physical, our body feels a certain way. Joy has a certain way, but most of the things in our life are going to be neutral or neutral positive, but really not that big of a deal. And so when I talk about the highest emotional weight, our brain takes that into account when it's going to decide what to pay attention to. We don't often actively or continually process this information or fact check it. And so when we dive deeper into identity and the identity that our students are carrying around, there's a few building blocks to that. One of them would be a negativity bias. That's kind of what I just explained. There's all these things coming at us, and our brains tend to pick out the negative because our brains want to protect us. Our brains want to keep us alive. And so we are focused on the negative just to make sure we know the bad things out there so that we can protect ourselves against them. Another thing that's building our identity is the myelinated pathways. That's better known as an autopilot. It's just how our brain, when we do an action enough, our brain realizes it's important, and to conserve energy, it creates this super highway to the neurons that it needs to do something. So you've all done this in your body. It's how you walk, it's how you eat, it's how you fold your hands. Our brain does the same thing in our thoughts. So once we have one thought, and let's say it's a negative thought, because that's the thoughts coming through more than anything else, our brain will start to collect these negative thoughts, and it will build a myelinated pathway that's sometimes negative or sometimes leading us to the same thing. Our brain likes to know what to expect. It feels safe that way. And so with that myelinated pathways, our students have created these pathways, these autopilots that are really hard to get out of. And if you think of personally some of your autopilots that are hard, that will help you have a little bit of understanding of what some of our students go through when they're trying to do something new and make a change in their life. Another part of that identity piece is fixed mindset. And neuroscientists used to think that our brain, the brain that you got was the brain that you got. So you get a good brain, awesome. You get a not so good brain, good luck with that. And that's kind of how some of the students still feel. Like, okay, yeah, they passed their AccuPlacer, they got the GED math done, good for them. I'm just not a math person. That's something that I can't do because I don't have the capability of that. Another thing with the lost motivation would be that fear of failure or fear of success. We've already kind of said fear is a driving force for a lot of us in what we do or what we choose not to do. So fear of failure, you're going to see this when somebody decides not to take maybe a GED test because they're afraid of failing. And if they don't take it, they're not going to fail. A fear of success would be the other way around, where somebody's ready to take, maybe they got a GED ready and it was likely to pass and you're excited for them, and maybe they even sign up for the test but they don't show up. And what's happening is they realize that a change is going to happen if this good thing happens. And so we've already kind of talked about change in the brain, fearing change a bit because it doesn't know what to expect. So their brain is now thinking, okay, if I pass my GED, then I need to go on to college, and I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know what that takes, and do I have the money? And then I have to like figure out childcare, and I don't really know what I want to do. Maybe I want to be a nurse, but I don't even know if I'm smart enough to do that. And then so all of these thoughts start to freeze them up, and then they run out of fear of success. There's also the rebellion against who they're there for, or in the opposite of that is they're not there for anybody. So this would be a situation where there is a student who's only there because their parents make them come, and they're usually sitting at the back of the class with their head down half of the time, really not engaged, or they're not there for anybody else. So yeah, they kind of want it, but they're not going to affect anybody else by getting it, or they don't see the effect. And so staying in bed, it seems to be, yeah, it would be nice to have money, nice to get my GED, but today I just really feel like staying in bed, and it really is not going to affect anybody. So those are some of the causes for that lost motivation and hope. And so I'll move on to some helpful program ideas. The first thing I do in my program is to teach students that change and growth is possible. So we spend a lot of time learning about these topics, learning about their brain, learning about their thoughts, teaching them that their thoughts are not who they are. They are actually the person behind the thoughts, and they're able to take these thoughts and either take them captive and decide what to do with the thoughts to see where the truth is at. If they don't realize they have that power, they become their thoughts. And so anytime there's a thought, anytime there's a desire, anytime there's a craving, any of that, they get kind of washed away in that tide, not realizing that they have control over it. Another thing that we do besides teaching them about all of this is to celebrate small successes and show growth, show change. This can be with test scores. This can be with attendance, understanding one concept. And so if a student is coming into the program and they need to get their GED, that's 4 tests. Maybe they haven't been to school in a long time. If the first time they're going to celebrate is when they have that GED, that is going to take a long time, and chances are they are going to fall off before they reach that goal. And so to figure out ways to show them success and those small successes, some of these, like I just mentioned, the test scores, the attendance, like, hey, you made it here a full week, that's awesome. Understanding one concept for someone who doesn't think they're a math person, to recognize, hey, we just went over this is pretty complicated and you got it, and that's awesome. Another thing is the emotional social aspect. I had a student in class last year, and I just happened to be by the door on the first day of class, and she's in her upper 30s, and I heard her whisper, I can't do this. And she was looking in the classroom, totally social anxiety, and I kind of brought her in by me. She kind of sat by me, and a couple months later, she's the one in the back of the class cracking the jokes, encouraging others, really bringing that positive energy into the classroom. And so I wrote her a note, and I was just like, you know, hey, I really noticed that. I mean, you went from this kind of person, and now you are a really great energy in class. And I've noticed that, and I'm really proud of you, so that she can see that growth. And we're going to talk about in a minute, learning can't happen until somebody feels safe. So where she was on that first day of class, she, in that state of anxiety, she would not be able to really retain any learning that was happening in class that day. But she moved into a higher social level where she felt at ease and felt calm, so she was going to get learning. So if she was in that first state and I was waiting for her to get a level gain, but I never focused on her safety, that may have never happened. Next one, teach new skills in intentional living. Every Monday I have my students, we pull out a calendar and we look at our goals. We break those goals down. So just teaching students about goals and then giving them space to plan intentionally. And then we also look at, okay, last week, what were your plans? Where were your successes in those? And then we make sure to break it down and realize, okay, you planned on doing this and you did it. That's awesome. But what did you have to change in your life to make that possible? Because if we're going to change, something has to change, and to recognize, okay, I didn't get on Netflix like I usually do, and I went to the computer instead, or whatever it was, to have them recognize what they needed to change. And in the same way, we look at missed opportunities. Okay, you planned on doing this last week. What happened? Yeah, I guess I didn't really feel like it. I didn't think about it. Okay, well, what really happened? And to really see what is getting in their way so that they can do something about it. A lot of times students don't get past the stage. Yeah, I don't know. So to show them the missed opportunities, and I always tell them, we're looking at this not through judgment. There's nothing we can do about the past, but let's learn from it. And so use those tools. And for some of us who have a college education and we're doing great with the job, these tools are something that come naturally to us. We probably learn them at an early age. The people around us were using these tools, but for some of our students, they've never been around the stability of being able to figure out a goal and go after a goal and be intentional about their learning. Some of them have been in such a state where they don't know if they're going to eat that night or where they're going to live, and so their brains have never built the capacity to think into the future. Another thing that I have down here is show them that the choice is theirs to be there. So that would be maybe a situation where a student is only there because the courts, their parents make them be there. One of the things that I have done before is I've put a 1 to 10 on the board, on the whiteboard, and with them, and they've given me some of the ideas. I say, okay, like an 8, 9, and 10, those are the students that come to class, they do what they need to do, and they reach their goal. And we say, okay, what does that look like? What do you think those students do? How do they think? And then we go to the 1, the 2, and the 3, and I say, these are the students, they'll show up a few times, but they're going to end up dropping off. What are they thinking? What are they doing? What does that look like? And they help me create these lists, and they're right on, and I'll add a few things if they don't think about it. But then each week I ask them, okay, where are you at on this? So that I'm giving them a tool to actively see where they're at, because a lot of times we don't take the time to recognize where we're at and where we want to be and what needs to change from that. So I had a student, I did this for a couple of weeks, and he was one of them. Class had a head down, mom made him come here, so he was there, perfect attendance, but he wasn't getting anything out of the class. And so we went through this exercise for a few weeks, and he was very open. He said, you know what, today I'm at a 7, but truth be told, last week I was at a 2. And he explained going through this stuff and really helping him empower himself to want to do this on his own was what helped. And this exercise helped him take his responsibility for his own learning and realize, yeah, okay, my parents want me to be here, but I really want to be here too. The last thing on the list is the self-transcendent purpose. That goes along with the idea of, okay, I don't have anybody, I'm here, and it'd be great to get my GED, it'd be great to get a good job, but like, I'm not affecting anybody if I'm here or not. So neuroscientists have found that if somebody has if they realize the bigger impact of what they're going to do, they are more likely to be motivated by it. So a student who, I want to be a nurse because I make a lot of money. Okay, great. Versus, I want to be a nurse because when my dad was sick, I went to a hospital, and the nurse was so great, and she was so great with my dad, and she was so great with us, and she really, really made a huge difference. And I want to do that in other people's lives too. I want to help patients, and I want to help patients' families. Maybe there's a few nurses that are burned out, and I want to help them find that passion again. And then also, nurses make pretty good money, and so I could give my children something sustainable. I can give them a life that I didn't have. We don't have to worry about money, and maybe we can even go on a vacation. So this student who is seeing the ripple effect of how many people she's going to affect by choosing this career, by first accomplishing these goals, is or may have a better motivation to stay in than just the person who's there for themselves. I'm going to move on. The next invisible barrier I have is anxiety. Now, I want to clarify, I'm not a psychologist. I am not speaking about anxiety from a clinical standpoint. A lot of our students do have that, and I recognize that. I just want to be clear that I am not a doctor. But our brains have the propensity to be steered by fear, and fear feels like anxiety. And so that's why I chose to use that word. And we've already talked about, in order for learning to occur, a student must feel safe. Safety comes in many forms. It's the physical, the emotional, the social. So a few ways in our programs that we can help our students who are kind of feeling that fear, feeling that anxiety. First, I've read quite a few books on social emotional learning, or ACEs. I assume most of you know what ACEs are. That's the Adverse Childhood Effects Study. It took took adults who went through adverse childhood situations, whether it would be abuse, neglect, divorce, drugs, that sort of thing. There's 10 of them, and it gave them a score based on how many that they were around in their childhood. And then it looked at them as adults and saw the correlation between their number and any sort of physical disease that they may have had. And they definitely saw a correlation with that. So my big thing with this, when I'm reading this, is, okay, well, what can we do for these adults? And the biggest thing that they kept saying is those adults who have been through that need to build trusting, strong relationships. That's probably something that they've never had in their past. And that's important because children, when they're younger, they need to co-regulate. They need an adult who provides safety for them. And in that safety, when you feel safe, you can learn. So there's safety, but they're also projecting what it looks like to regulate. So regulating your emotions. Okay, when I get upset, how am I going to deal with that, either in a good way or a bad way? So a child is both feeling unsafe and going to this person to get their safety from this person, but they're also watching this person and how they are correctly dealing with emotions. And so a person who never was taught that or never had that safe person, even as an adult, there's a positive effect by that person having somebody that they can trust. So we can be that. And I put in parentheses, co-regulate, but with boundaries. I want to make that very clear that you can be that steady person, you can be that kind person, you can be that cheerleader for somebody, but make sure you're doing it with boundaries. A lot of folks who've never gotten that, once they have somebody to do that, they will go full bore. And so you need to know, okay, here's what I'm willing to do, and here's what I'm not willing to do. And I'm going to kindly say, no, I'm not, I can't help you with that, but if you want to come in, I'm able to, and explain in a nice way, okay, here's what you're able to do, and here's what you're not able to do. And that kind of flows into that second one of the teacher personally being mindful. It also includes being present in your class. Are you making sure that you're ready? Are you present? Are you thinking about what you're going to have for supper? Are you thinking about you're annoyed because something happened earlier, something happened with the student, and so you're not really giving your all? People can tell when you're not present with them, and if you're not present with them, they will not be present with you. So some of this has to do with you as a staff member or teacher, what you're willing to do. And that becomes hard sometimes because it's not just, I say, putting a poster on the wall of the kitten, falling off the cliff and hang in there. We actually have to embody some of that in order to be helpful. Another thing with that is to build a classroom community and classroom culture. Kathy kind of shared a few of the ways that they do it at the Hub Center. A few things that we do. One thing is to look at the in-group, out-group. Our brains are wired to fear being in the out-group. And so even if we're in the in-group and we're feeling included, we are still unconscious of something that may happen to shoot us into the out-group, and we don't want that. If a student comes to class enough but they don't feel like they ever broke through, and they feel like they're in this out group where nobody cares about them, where maybe people don't like them, they will stop showing up. And so how to create a culture of this in group. Some of that would be providing times of conversation on topics they enjoy. And I assume most of you already do this, but a few minutes before class starts, how was your weekend? Did you see this show? Get them talking about something they feel comfortable about and feel safe enough to talk about, whereas they may not answer a math question because they may be wrong, but they can tell you the opinion of what they thought of, whatever show happened or whatever sports thing happened. Some of this is group work. And they may be, a student may come in very shelled in, and they may not seem like they want to interact, but humans are wired for interaction. And so it's to create that safe spot, and depending upon who it is, that may take a while, but creating that safe spot so that they build community. One of the big topics when I spoke on this last Friday in Mankato was the idea of fun and how to bring in fun. A couple of their examples were one of the math teachers always puts a math comic on the board. So when they walk in, the first thing they have is this joke, usually about math. Another teacher said that she has this pom-pom cheer thing, and she says, I look really silly doing it, and it's a little weird, but when it's the student's turn and I'm recognizing a student for something, they may feel a little weird, but they're also a little proud inside that attention is going towards them. There is going to be a Schoology connection to this webinar afterwards, so that would be a great place if you have some ideas of how you bring fun into the classroom. I think that's one of the #1 things, at least from last Friday, that teachers would really wanted to wrap their minds around. I'm going to keep going though for sake of time. Another thing that we do is we have Google Classroom for our GED and college prep students. So there's a page on there that's much like Facebook where anybody can write something. So sometimes it's staff led, but we encourage students to also be able to write stuff, whether they want to encourage the class or whether they need help on a topic or whether they need a ride. And, you know, honestly, depending upon the semester, some semesters the students are all over it, and you have a few who are real encouragers who really take that on. And then some semesters it's a little bit slower than others. On that Google Classroom, I do a weekly check-in that they do online, and I just use that with the little quiz thing that they do. So they're able to log in, put their name, and then I have the basic questions of basically asking, how are you doing? Do you need help with anything? And then I list all of the staff that they could potentially want to talk to and what that staff member covers, and if they need to talk to any of those staff members. So that's a great way to indicate for them if they need help, and we're able to catch anybody before they fall through the cracks. So they're able to say, nope, I'm having a really hard time, or I don't know if I can make this goal, or here's what's going on, or I need to talk to somebody. Because a lot of times if we wait for them to physically come up to us and verbally say, I need help, which some students have no problem at all and they do it all the time, but other students, you wouldn't know that. So this gives them the opportunity weekly to communicate that with us. Our ESL group, some of our classes, they have Popsicle Sticks with student names on them. And so when they're done learning a lesson, or at the end of the day, the student's able to put their Popsicle Stick in a cup that either has a smiley face, a neutral face, or a frowny face. And that's the way that the teacher is able to get, okay, how are they feeling about this topic, or how are they feeling overall? Can I move on, or do I need to spend a little bit more time? Or is there a certain student or two that's really having a hard time and I need to keep my eye on them, or I need to put them with a tutor or spend more time with them so that they don't disappear? Because when a student feels that way long enough, they probably will disappear. Another thing that we do is all of our teachers are on Remind, and they have their class on the Remind app. So when they do attendance every day, if somebody was gone and they didn't let us know, they shoot a remind out to that person, hey, we really missed you today. If you're going to be gone tomorrow, call us at whatever number. Hope to see you. And the teachers came back, and at first they were a little apprehensive because this was more work for them, but they came back saying, I love to have that instant contact with my students, and I'm hearing from them more than I ever did. We're able to kind of keep track of who's doing what, and it also gives that student a sense of the in-group, like, okay, I was gone one day and they noticed and they missed me. I made a difference in that classroom. I'm going to move on. The last one I want to talk about is low expectations, and this is for our programs. I love the quote from Les Brown, no one rises to low expectations. The idea behind this is we're wired for consequence. So we're either motivated because we are going to get an reward out of it, or we're motivated because we want to escape pain. Now our brain, I use that word pain in a general sense, our brain feels pain the same way, whether it's physical or whether it's emotional. So it's a negative consequence that I want to avoid. If your program isn't giving either one or the other or both to students, then your student is going to seek a reward or escape a consequence from some other place. Now, this means if in your attendance policy you don't have one and you show up when you want to show up, and we do this because we understand our students have busy lives and we want them to be there and we want to be there for them, and depending upon your student, there's different levels of that. But if you don't have any attendance policy, anytime anything happens in their life that has a positive reward or a consequence of happening at the same time as your class, they're much more likely to choose that than choose your class. So a cousin needs a ride to the airport, or they need to watch their sibling, or they went to the doctor's office and then they said, okay, our next appointment, we could have you come in at this time, and it's the same time as class. They're just going to be like, okay. It's not going to hit them that your class is that important, because you frankly maybe haven't made it that important. You've made it a side item. So kind of looking at what your attendance policy is. For our GED class last year, we said you cannot miss unless you let us know. There's a 0 unexpected attendance policy, unexcused policy. And one of the students came up and said, do not change that. I need to have that or else I won't show up. And like I said, you know your program better. I'm not trying to say that everybody needs to follow that strictly, but just to process what's going on in the mind of your student. What can they really step up to? What expectation can they step up to if they actually have an expectation? Grades is another thing. It's going to work for some classes and it's not going to work for some levels. We're not, we don't do grades for our lower ESL, but we're looking at our higher ESL, moving grades into that. That's not something we do right now. But if you're just saying, yeah, you can do this if you want, but it doesn't, doesn't really matter. And you may not say it doesn't really matter, but they're going to get it doesn't really matter, because it's not. Whether they go home and do homework or not, teacher doesn't really care. It doesn't make a difference. So I'm going to put other things more important in my life. Well, when they do that, they're not advancing. They're not taking our classes as seriously as they could. So whether it's grades or whether it's some other marking that they can tell, you know what, I'm going to work hard because this is important to me and I want to be recognized. I want my teacher to recognize it. I want to recognize it. I have a reason to work hard. Other things that we have the Adult Honor Society that we started last year. We do attendance awards. We do online learning hours. And so our online learning staff member just went in and said who won from last week in all the individual classes, and we've just started that. So one class didn't get any, but she's able to say, you know what, nobody got it this week, but it was just a reminder. Next week we'll be doing this again. So just kind of giving them some goals to shoot for, and then some either rewards or some consequences for not hitting them. All right, that's all I have. I think next up is Sherry.
Hi, everyone. Creating a Facebook group versus a page. Is that working for everybody? Most of my social media is on Facebook. I've really stuck to that. I'm having good success with it, so it's the platform that I'm choosing to use. There are two options. You can create a Facebook group or you can create a Facebook page. I have chosen to do a page. Pages are always public, and with a page, the owner can control the content. If you choose to do a group, people join the group and it's meant to be more conversational, sharing ideas. I want to do the page because I want to keep control. So when you do your page, you'll be able to complete the About section on the far left. And in that area, you can add your location, your hours, the services that you offer. And so it really gives people a lot of good information about your page. I have found that photos are the #1 thing that add interest and drive people to your page. So on the next slide, you will see a certificate of I just earned my GED, and this is available through the IMABE group. I don't know if you have found them yet, but they're doing great advocacy for adult education in our state, and they're doing some exciting things. But they have developed this whole series of certificates, and they have everything from I just earned my GED to I became a citizen, I made a level gain. So I have printed out these posters, they call them, and I use them with my students. You can see the little site address at the bottom of this slide, but these are also available at the Literacy Action Network website under the Resources tab. So go ahead and explore. I print them out and I just have them on hand so that I'm ready whenever a student does anything. Christy mentioned celebrating the small. And of course, earning a GED is not a small thing, I realize that. But some of the other certificates can be used to help students celebrate the successes they make along the way. So on my next slide, I pulled 3 different posts that I have on Facebook. So these are really what generate a lot of excitement on my page. I get the most reaction and engagement from people when I do student photos. So these are, like I said, 3 different examples. I like to ask students for a quote or advice they would give to a student who might be thinking about coming to our program. When I ask the question that way, students they have great quotes and they're very responsive. They can be really encouraging. So I'll write the quote and then I'll give the student's name based on what the student is willing to share. Sometimes it's their first name, sometimes it's their first and last name. I like to do fun hashtags, but I always do that hashtag IMABE when I post, because then that group will also carry out and share with a wider audience. Anytime you can get things shared, it's going to generate more views. On the next slide, I have ways for you to get more likes. So when you post something, you can actually find your likes. So you can see on this slide, it's fairly small, but there are 6 likes on the page. If you click on that and go to the next slide, you'll be able to see who has liked the page. And I called this You Like Me, You Really Like Me. So Brad liked this particular post, Kimberly liked this post, and on the right you can see that they've already liked my page. But you'll also find people that you can invite to like your page. And most of the time when I invite someone to like the page, they will they'll respond back and just click on the like. We just recently hit 400 likes for Hutchinson Adult Basic Education. So part of the reason that we've been able to do that is by inviting people who are already engaging with the posts. I also want to encourage you, on the next slide, you'll see insights. When you have a page, one of the tabs that you can click on at the top is Insights. There's a lot of information here. Spend some time exploring the options, and I especially use post engagements. Who is reacting to the information that I'm sharing on my page? One of my favorite things available under Insights and post engagement is when are your fans online? And on my next slide, you can see a chart of what that looks like. It's actually a timeline of when my people are online and using Facebook. So from this, I can see that many more people are on in the evenings. And so I can maximize my exposure and my views on my posts by posting at night. Now, the problem is that I don't really want to be doing my work stuff at night. I don't have access to the photos necessarily and all of that. So to get more traffic, I scheduleize my posts and that maximizes my reach. On the next slide, I'll show you how to do that. I say timing is everything. So when you create a post, you'll notice that there's the publish button. And if you click publish, your post is just going to be posted. It's going to be published in that moment. But there's a little drop down arrow to the right of the publish button where you can schedule your posts. To schedule your post, you're going to write your content, you're going to upload any files or photos, and then when you click on that drop down button, you'll see a calendar and a clock. So I can schedule my postings way in advance if you want to, and set them to be published in the evening hours when more people are active on Facebook. Another way to maximize your slide is on the next slide, and that is to find large local groups. So if I share something on my Facebook page just within my Hutchinson Adult Education group, I'll typically reach a few hundred people, somewhere 400 to 600 people see my postings. But in Hutchinson, we have something called Real Life in Hutchinson, and that group has over 10,000 members. When I take my published posts and I share them to Real Life in Hutchinson, some of the job seeker forums. There's another group that's large in our area called Real Life in Dassel Cokato. I will get thousands of engagements on my post. Thousands of people will see them. I just posted a photo last week that had a gentleman who is working on digital literacy, and he hit 200 hours. So we were celebrating, and that post has over 6,400 views. So that's a lot of people who are learning and seeing what we're all about. So I don't know what the big local groups are in your area, but if you Google your town's name, you're going to see them. On this slide, you can see I just picked Big Lake. So if you're from Big Lake, I would want to be checking out the Big Lake Forum because there's 7,200 people in that group. So I would want to be sharing out some of those large groups. Another tip, go ahead and let's go to the next slide. That shows you how to do the sharing. Thank you, Carla. So once you post, you can click on that little arrow and click share. The next box shows you that you're going to share in a group, and you'll just type in the names of the groups that you want to share in. The only thing that's unfortunate is that you do need to go through the steps for each time you share. You can't share to multiple groups at once. I don't think. I haven't found a way to do that. So that's my information on Facebook. I want to also show you that we have a new Google site. I went to Summer Institute in 2018 and attended Carla's session, which was awesome, Carla. Thank you. And she showed us how to create a Google site. So over the last couple of months, I've recently launched hutchadulted.com. And for us, it's a way to get more information to people. You know, we have the page on the school website, but that really just has our hours and a little bit of information. With my Google site, I can add a lot of detail. Take a look at that. If you want me to share this site with you, you can borrow it, use it for your program, tweak it how you want to. I think that's the great thing about a Google site is that we can share. And we're all about sharing in adult education, aren't we? The last thing I want to mention is Google My Business. So now that I have my Google site, I registered, and you don't have to have a site to do this. I did not know about Google My Business. It isn't social media, but I wanted you to check it out. It's easy because you just log in with your current Google credentials, and from there, you can add information about your address, your hours, obviously your phone number. I put in photos of our program and what it looks like, what the doors look like, how to get in. And so now when anybody does a Google search, they'll see this large Google My Business, sort of like an ad, but I haven't paid for it, on the right side of the screen. And I'm also able to link our new website here. So I think there were like 58 people who found Hutchinson Adult Education through Googling. And again, this also has analytics, so I can see what words are people using. They're using adult education, they're using GED, they're using high school diploma. And so it really is a great tool to help people find your program. That is the end of my part of the presentation. So let's go ahead and I'll turn it back over to Carla.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sherry, and thanks, Kathy and Christy, for all of your great information. What I want to let everybody know is that we would love to continue the discussion on Schoology. You can create a free Schoology account at Schoology.com. You'll locate the group's drop-down menu and choose Minnesota ABE Administrators. Click Join, and then there will be this code that you need to input. So I don't know if you're able to take a picture or screenshot this page, or I will put this information up on the Literacy Action Network website so that you can access this again, and click Join to complete. And then if you have any further questions for our presenters or want to continue on a discussion with these topics, there's a place where you can, a discussion area where you can post your question in the Minnesota ABE Administrators Group, and we will follow up with you. I also think it would be a great place for people to connect with their ideas, or if you want to know a little more about what the presenters talked about today, that would be a great place to put your question as well. And we hope that this will be something that will be useful and that can generate questions and discussions and connections amongst the ABE field. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording.